Hey there, garden friends. Today we are going to tackle one of the sweetest and, to be completely honest, trickiest fruit to grow here in our hot, humid climate, and that is watermelon. Now, I've had plenty of successful harvests over the years, but I'll tell you the truth. Watermelon is one of those crops where I do everything I can to set it up for success and then still have to cross my fingers and hope for the best. In this video, I'll walk you through all of the frequently asked questions, everything from when to plant it and what varieties will do best, on to when to pick it for peak ripeness and sweetness. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can follow along on this homesteading journey. And let's dive in so that we can get you harvesting sweet, delicious melons from your own backyard. As with any crop, one of the most important things to consider is season. Now, if you are in tropical or subtropical regions like I am, I'm in Florida, zone 10A, anywhere that has those really distinct hot and cool but not cold winters. We're gonna have actually two seasons to plant watermelons, one in spring and one in fall, due to the temperatures as well as the rain, which we'll get into in a little bit. So the easiest way to determine when you should plant what's right for you in your growing zone in your area is to basically count back from the harvest date. So watermelons take about 4 months from seed to harvest. And so if we think about it in that perspective, you're going to go back from either the heavy summer rains or your first frost date and count 4 months back. So for me here in Florida, zone 10A, we are in August right now, and that's actually prime time to plant for fall, August, September time frame, because that allows me to harvest the watermelons before the temperatures actually start to cool off at night and get cold enough that the watermelons just don't thrive. I usually like to pick a quicker growing variety for that time of year. And then I'll also have a second opportunity to plant in the spring, which actually ends up being more like February or March for me, because what I'm trying to do with my spring planting is beat all of these heavy summer rains, which can cause big issues with watermelons. Before we talk about that though, let's talk about where to put those seeds. Now, this watermelon plant that I am sitting next to here is the result of a watermelon seed spitting contest to see who could spit the seeds the furthest. But it just goes to show that they don't need like perfect soil. This is growing in sheet mulch, so it's got a little bit of water retention, the capability to hold a little bit of nutrients, but it also is pretty well drained because it's primarily sandy soil underneath this sheet mulch. Watermelons really don't like to have wet feet, wet roots, which means they do want that drainage. Now, if they were in straight sand, it wouldn't be able to hold water or nutrients enough to nourish the plants, but they don't necessarily need like super rich, dark garden soil. So try to find a healthy balance between the two when you're planting your watermelons. And also, if you are planting into raised beds, containers, or anything that does potentially hold a little bit more moisture, I would recommend planting into like a little volcano or a hill, however you want to think about it. When I plant them in my raised beds out front, I'll kind of mound the soil together into a little hill with the rest of the raised bed around it, and then I plant the seeds into that hill. That just allows any potential excess water to be able to drain and evaporate away a little bit easier than if it were down in the main bed. So you may be wondering, do I need to have a raised bed? Can I grow it in containers? There are certainly varieties that don't sprawl quite as much, but this plant that I'm walking next to sprawls probably 10, 12 feet, maybe a little bit more out and around. Now that could mean that you might not be able to grow it, but put it into perspective. If all you have is containers to grow in and you're okay with it sprawling out of the pot, you absolutely can still grow it in a container. Just know that the plant itself is going to be out from that container. Now, another trick to save space when growing watermelons, which I do often do in my raised beds in particular, is trellis them. If you trellis them, these are natural climbers just like cucumbers. They're in the same family. They actually have those little tendrils that wrap themselves around a chain link fence, a cattle panel arch, any other trellis material that you have around. They will happily climb up. And when they're climbing up, they're not going out. And it has a bonus with that. By improving airflow, you actually reduce the amount or chance of disease and pest issues that might otherwise occur. So as you can see here, I do have watermelons. This is the third. I have 2 on the vine. We just harvested one a little bit ago. And I do have blooms, but it doesn't look the happiest, right? Now, I am a no spray garden, and I am actively working towards selecting for plants that truly can survive without really any assistance from me, but most gardeners are not in that position or with that goal in mind. And so it is important to be able to identify some of the common disease issues, pest issues, so that you can handle them. Because if you do a truly hands-off approach like I'm working with here, you will absolutely have a lot of losses. I just happen to be okay with that to reach my ultimate goal. So if you see yellowing leaves, super common here with watermelon and all cucurbits here in Florida, anywhere that's hot and humid. These are almost always a sign of disease, like a fungal disease. Downy mildew is probably the most common issue with watermelons. You might also experience gummy stem blight, which is also basically like another fungal issue. It's like where the stem itself gets kind of sticky and like brown lesions on it. But this yellowing that you see here is definitely downy mildew. Most fungal issues can be treated. There's all sorts of organic over-the-counter sprays you can purchase. You can also do a DIY version of a fungal spray, which I absolutely love and recommend. I'll have a video for that later. Now, treating this powdery mildew, downy mildew, any sort of fungal issue will be really important, because if you don't, it's very likely that it could potentially kill your plants. So definitely something to take care of and address as you see it occur. The other hand, disease is pests, and that can also ruin your crop. We did lose the first melon off this vine to some critters. I don't know if it was a possum, raccoon, rat, squirrel, bird, who knows. Something got into our first melon off of this vine, which is why you saw these little baskets sitting on top of the watermelons that we do have ripening on the vine right now. It doesn't have to be fancy or glorified. These are just little plastic waste bins. You do need airflow through it, so you don't want to have it like in a sealed bag or anything like that. But just anything to keep them from munching. Chicken wire also works really well, potentially hardware cloth, something like that, just to deter them from munching on the melons. The other thing that is pretty important that I have found and have dealt with on multiple occasions is caterpillars boring up from the soil. And so what happens is you have this beautiful melon sitting there looking perfectly ripe and ready. You'll even have all of the indicators we're going to talk about in a second telling you that the watermelon is ready to harvest. You go to pick it, you cut it open, and it's full of worms. Disgusting. What happens is they will burrow up from underground, from the soil, and so if you're not rotating it or checking for that, you would never even know that they're in there, and here they are happily munching away on your fruit. So there are little trivet tray things that you can purchase. This is a melon stand made specifically for this purpose. You do not have to go this fancy. You can use an overturned nursery pot. You can use a crushed soda can, whatever you have lying around. The gist of it is to get some sort of distance between the soil and the melon itself to help with that issue. It is more common for them to be able to burrow through the skin. When the fruit is first forming, the skin is much softer. Once they get a little bit tougher skin on the outside, it's usually not as big of an issue. One of the other really common issues or pests that I've experienced with watermelons and squash, cucumbers, the whole cucurbit family, is squash vine borers. They are really common, and what happens is they will lay their eggs in the stem. When those eggs hatch, the little caterpillars munch their way into the base of the stem. And so you have this beautiful, lush, healthy plant forming, and then all of a sudden the entire plant goes kaput. That is squash vine borer. spores. Luckily, there's a pretty easy remedy to that. They like to lay right along the surface of the soil, and so trellising up helps with that. They don't tend to mess with the vine that's going up as much as it is when it's in contact with the soil. And wherever that vine does start to form, all you have to do is wrap a little bit of tin foil around the base where it touches the soil and then a few inches up that stem, and that will prevent the insect from laying the eggs on the stem and prevents the problem from ever occurring. So the other things you need to think about are water and fertilizer. Now, in the rainy season, you may not have to water, but if it's been more than a few days, you are gonna have to give it a drink because this one is outside of my normal garden irrigation area. We hand water this one if we haven't had rain in 4 or 5 days. They probably only need a drink, a nice deep watering, but a good drink probably twice a week. More so when they're first getting established. So if you have a very young vine, only a few inches long, obviously while the seeds are germinating, that kind of thing, definitely daily water or every other day. But once you have an established vine, twice a week, nice deep watering should be more than enough to hold it over. It doesn't need water along the entire vine. It doesn't have roots along the vine like a vining squash. This is only at the base of the plant. That's where its roots are. So that's the only spot you need to water. All right, now fertilizer, on the other hand, is something that the leaves and vine can also take up as well as the roots. So when you're looking at fertilizers, I always recommend a nice slow release granular type fertilizer at the planting location for the roots itself. But most plants, not all, but they like pick-me-ups throughout the growing season, especially if you're just getting your soil system established. And so it can be really helpful every 2 to 4 weeks approximately to do some sort of liquid fertilizer. Most of the time, as long as you have that granular in there, it's not going to make or break the success of the plant, but you typically will see increased yields, i.e. more melons to harvest if you do give it those little fertilizer pick-me-ups every once in a while. You can use any sort of liquid fertilizer. My personal favorite is worm casting tea because I can make that here. Kelp, liquid kelp, or fish emulsion are also great options. And if you happen to have more than one of those options on hand, offering the plant different things is always nice because the plant knows what it needs and we don't always know what it needs. And so when we offer it variety, it's able to pick and choose what it needs most at that time. And worm casting tea also does have the added benefit of decreasing fungal issues. It's proven and scientifically shown, so that is definitely a good one to consider if you're doing any sort of liquid fertilizer on your watermelons. So one of the most common questions I get is about when to pick a watermelon, or that somebody did pick their watermelon and it doesn't taste sweet. It's bland flavored. It's watery, but no sweetness. And while it can have to do with like water or fertilizer, if you follow the general recommendations I just mentioned, you should be square on that. It's probably though when you picked it. And so there's a few indicators. None of them are 100% precise or totally clear cut. So it is going to take a little bit of practice. But there's a few indicators we can look for on the melon to know whether or not it is ready to pick, because they can vary in size. So that's not going to be the ultimate indicator. So let's take a look at this melon here and see what we're working with. Now, the first thing to do is look for the tendril that is across from the melon. So here we have our melon. Here's where it attaches. The tendril that is across from it is right here, and it's literally connected to or touching the stem that the watermelon is on. And so what happens is this green stem or green tendril will actually start to turn brown as the fruit ripens and matures. And so this single tendril will start to turn brown naturally, not because the plant is diseased or dying or anything like that. And you'll start to notice that starting at the tip and working its way back towards the stem, that it'll start to go brown. When it gets brown all the way up to the stem, that is generally the best indicator we have that this fruit is ready to harvest. So let's take a look at the other watermelon that we have on the vine. Now this one, as you can see here, is almost ready. The brown stem on it is almost all the way up to the main stem, but you can kind of see here The brown stops here and it's still green. I know that seems silly to wait for just that tiny little bit, and you may be sorely tempted, since the whole rest of this is brown, to pick it at this point, but I highly recommend to wait longer than less. This is when it's becoming sweet. This is when it's getting that red color. If you've ever cut them open and they're still a little white inside, it's because you picked it so early. So unless you have some sort of like torrential hurricane coming through, I don't know, like crazy rains where these might split and crack, I would really encourage you to wait as long as possible before picking the melon. There are a few other indicators that we can use as well to support whether or not it's ripe to pick. One of them is fairly hard to tell if you aren't doing it consistently leading up to it. But what happens is when the melon is ready to pick, the sound when you knock on it becomes a little bit more hollow. Now, that could be hard to tell, but if you do it every day or every other day when you're walking by, checking on the melon, whatever, and you're doing it consistently over time, you will notice a change in that sound, and that can just help to support your decision to harvest this. The other thing that you can look for is a yellowing spot on the bottom of the melon. So usually when they're ready to pick, you'll notice this is just now starting to get it, which would support that it's not quite ready yet, but you can see how it's getting a little bit lighter green. This will almost form like a yellowing on the bottom. That's not because it was not turned over in the field or anything crazy like that. That's actually just a secondary indicator that this melon is ready to harvest. So we're gonna go ahead and let these guys go for a while longer. This one's probably going to need, if I were to guess, another week or so, maybe 5 days before this one's actually ready to harvest. That other one is showing no signs yet, so we've got a while to wait on that one. So which varieties do you plant? If you have not had the best luck with watermelons in the past, if you've never grown them at all, or if you are planting in the fall, I would recommend planting one of the smaller icebox melons. They have less room for error because as the larger melons are developing, you have more chance for them to crack and split, which can be an issue with watermelons. So if you're new or struggled in the past, I would recommend something smaller, like the Sugar Baby. Early Moonbeam is another variety that's a nice one, very compact, small melons, but at least you'll get a harvest that way. If you're gaining in confidence or if you're just willing to roll the dice, there are some fantastic larger watermelon varieties to try out. Strawberry is an heirloom watermelon variety for Florida. It's those big old watermelons that you would see sitting on the back of the truck in the middle of summer. So lots of good options, but if you're questioning it, go with the smaller ones. Now, if you have not heard before, I do have an online seed shop. Some of the seeds that I save are my own. Some are from reputable local retailers or small-scale farmers. Shopping through those links helps to support the work that I do here on the YouTube channel and is greatly appreciated. So if you have not yet checked it out, please do so. And we will have all of these watermelon varieties and more on the site. So we've covered a lot. I've obviously harvested sweet, juicy melons, but they do take a little bit more work than your average crop here in Florida, especially if you're a low maintenance gardener. So that trick that I told you with the DIY fungal disease is going to be critical for you to be able to succeed with this endeavor. I highly recommend checking out this video next, which gives you the exact ratio I use to treat powdery and downy mildew whenever it is present in my garden.